Welcome everyone, good day, good reset. It's Wednesday and we are now edging even closer to the next week's reset, which is going to be the beginning of the Legion Timewalking, as we covered yesterday when it came to the Mage Tower challenge, which is, I'm assuming, what is going to be the bigger pull for this part of the patch. That is going to be the activity being able to give you the Tomb of Sargeras tier 20 recolored armor sets. It's also going to be able to give, for example, Guardian Druids a new Fel Bear form, and if you complete one of the challenges for at least one spec of each class, you're also going to get the Mage Bound Spell Tome mount. However, amongst the release of this Mage Tower challenge, there is also going to be the release of the Mythic Plus Legion Timewalking event. Now, because this also is going to be able to grant you some decent to interesting type of rewards, perhaps even great for some of you, and also it's still going to give you loot, it is also something we can go over today. Now, when talking about this Mythic Plus event, which is going to last, as usual, worth reminding everyone, just 2 weeks. So, for the moment, Blizzard is planning on making this Timewalking event last for 2 weeks, the first time that they release it, and then the next time it's going to be available is going to be just like any other Timewalking event, lasting only 1 week. The dramatic part of this discovery is the fact that the next time we are planning to see a Timewalking event for Legion is in like 4 months. So there is some distant hope still that Blizzard will redeem their ways and somehow extend the Timewalking event for Legion, perhaps throughout all of the Christmas and December, January holidays and whatnot, maybe. But for the time being, let's continue with the assumption that it's just gonna last for 2 weeks. The first thing worth pointing out is that unlike the Mage Tower challenge, while you are still going back to old dungeons, your character is not going to be scaled down. So there's not going to be any cheese happening whatsoever. There's not going to be any tinkering going on with your enchants, your foods, your flask, or old expansions socketed gear, because Legion Mythic Plus will simply be upped to the Shadowlands item level. So it's going to be basically the same level as the current Mythic Plus dungeons. So your character from Shadowlands is just going to go and enter that dungeon as if it was any other dungeon with no particular difference. The other thing worth mentioning is that you will have to go to Tashup to get your Mythic Keystone next week, just like you can go to Tashup right now to get a Keystone if you don't have one. You will go to him and it will give you a Legion Timewalking Mythic Plus key. It is also worth mentioning that the level of the key that will be given to you is 1 level lower than your current Mythic Plus key. So if you have a 19 key right now, next week you're going to be getting a plus 18 key for any of the 6 available Legion dungeons. Talking about the available Legion dungeons, that's another point worth mentioning. While all of the Legion dungeons by the end of the expansion were 14, the available ones for this event are only going to be 6. So Blizzard has cut over 60% of the available dungeons. Some of those are going to be well appreciated by the community for being missing, because the missing ones are going to be Cathedral of the Eternal Night and Seat of the Triumvirate, which were the 2 later added dungeons, later in the later patches of Tomb of Sargeras and Argus, and those are going to be some very welcome reductments by Blizzard, because those were not certainly liked dungeons back in Legion. They are also going to cut off both of Karazhan dungeons. Both of the lower and the upper Karazhan dungeons are not going to be available. That was also a later added set of dungeons. Talking about later added set of dungeons, although the delay of these 2 dungeons was very small, I'm talking about Court of Stars and the Archway, only one of these 2 dungeons is going to be available, which is the Court of Stars. Now, some debate can be had on whichever of the 2 was the hardest one. I do think Court of Stars is harder than the Archway, especially in Pugs. In Pugs, Court of Stars is a little bit more of a clusterfuck, but that's the dungeon that's going to be available. Archway is going to be missing. We're also going to have missing the longest and shortest of the dungeons from Legion, Halls of Valor and Maw of Souls. I'm going to assume those exact reasons. Halls of Valor can get pretty long, and then Maw of Souls is basically the opposite. Good organized groups were blasting through Maw of Souls in literally 8 minutes. So I don't think it's going to be too bad of a miss. What is also going to be missing for last, not that it was expected to come, is Violet Hold, because Violet Hold was essentially a meme dungeon which wasn't even available in the Mythic Plus pool anyways. Which means the available dungeons in the end are going to be Vault of the Wardens, Neltarian's Lair, Eye of Ajara, Dark Art Thicket, Court of Stars, and Black Rook Hold. Now, talking about the loot, because if there is one interesting thing about this system is that the loot is still going to be up to par. It's not going to be some of those old useless pieces of time-warped gear that at the very best is going to be used by alts. It's actually going to be working the exact same way as the Mythic Plus gear is working right now. So as long as you're getting at or above plus 14 level in Mythic Plus, you're going to be looting 236 item level gear, just like you would if you were clearing, say, a Spire of Ascension key. It's the same result. The only difference in the loot is that it's not going to be available from the Great Vault pool of items. So even if you run 20 of these Legion dungeons in this week, they are still not gonna get their gear in the pool of the available Great Vault options. The peculiar part about the Great Vault is that while the items will not show up in the vault, completing the actual dungeon itself will count towards Great Vault progression. So if you're doing one Mythic Plus dungeon from Legion, you're still gonna get a normal Shadowlands option at the end of the week from your Great Vault. I think it could have been cool if Blizzard for these couple of weeks would have made your Mythic Plus Great Vault only give you Mythic Plus loot from Legion, just for even an extra incentive of clearing those dungeons. But for the moment, that does not look like it's gonna happen. What you will also be able to do with this gear is upgrading it with Valor. As pointed out, it's gonna work the same as any other piece of gear from Mythic Plus right now, so you will be looting it at 236 item level if the key is a plus 14 or higher, and you will also be able to upgrade it to 246 item level with Valor points. There are going to be some interesting pieces of gear, particularly trinkets from Legion, that might be pretty interesting for some classes and specs that you might be going for. You might be hunting particular Legion dungeons for those items. It's also going to be interesting based on how they are scaling, how they are going to be going all the way up to 246 item level, as right now they have been brought down to item level 45 as their base item level, so perhaps some of these things might be worth going after. Now, talking about the dungeons themselves, there are going to be 2 weeks, therefore there are going to be 2 different affixes, and what do you know, one is going to be tyrannical and one is going to be fortified. Now, it's been a while since these dungeons have been available for testing on the PTR. It started all the way back to over 2 months ago when this mode was available for testing, and the 2 set of affixes were the same: Tyrannical, Bursting, Volcanic, and the special affix Infernal, and then Fortified, Sanguine, Quaking, and the special affix Infernal. So, talking about Infernal first, this is going to be something that we have right now, so the Tormented affix with a mini-boss. Except, for this case, the placement seems to be much more standard and much less requiring of any type of pathing, because they're going to be pretty much placed in front of every boss, or almost every boss, so it's not that difficult to plan a path for them. Also, there is a difference compared to the current mini-bosses you have to defeat for the anima powers in current Season 2 of Shadowlands, which is the fact that they will be summoning continuously a bunch of adds. Also, these adds are not going to disappear, are not going to suddenly despawn if you kill the mini-boss, so you will still have to deal with them. In the PTR, you could end up having some problems, because while the mini-bosses are all different, and you don't have, at the very least from what you could test on the PTR, you don't have a way to know which one is coming, because all you see is the device you can interact with, and it's going to spawn the mini-boss, but you don't know which one. All of them are going to do a similar mechanic while doing different other things. The similar shared mechanic is going to be spawning 2 circles on the ground that you need to soak, and if you don't, adds are going to spawn. This can get somewhat tricky, because since these summoning devices are placed close to the boss, sometimes these circles are going to be basically on top of the boss, which makes it kind of impossible to go and soak if you don't want to pull the boss. Now, the weird thing about Infernal is that it did look like it was mostly there just for flavor. It didn't seem like to have some sort of booby trap device where you must trigger this mini-boss before the boss itself, or if you pull the boss, the device is going to trigger by itself, and defeating this mini-boss is not actually going to give you any percentage, just like all of the other seasonal affixes that don't really give you any progress, like Prideful didn't, like Tormented right now doesn't, and also it doesn't actually give you any buff. There is no anima power at the end of the mini-boss, there is not going to be a Prideful buff at the end of the mini-boss, there isn't just any, there's just nothing. So it is kind of weird to give you this type of affix without any actual payoff at the end of the fight. Now, I can, however, at the very least appreciate Blizzard because they did go for some easy couple of pairings of affixes together with Infernal, because for Tyrannical you have Bursting and Volcanic. Volcanic is very simple, it's very nice to see a Volcanic weak. Bursting, you know, Bursting can get a little bit annoying, but it's been nerfed multiple times at this point. It's also not going to affect Tyrannical that much, so it's not that bad of a pairing. And then the next week it's even better, because it's Sanguine and Quaking. So pretty much a non-issue for the week, together with Fortified. The adds spawned by the Infernal are not going to trigger Sanguine as far as I'm aware, because there's going to be quite a bit of them and they're going to continue spawning, so it's pretty nice that Sanguine is not going to be affecting these mobs. Now, as far as rewards go, let's just start by saying that the rewards from the Mage Tower are going to be much more shiny than what you can get in here. Besides the usual Legion stuff you can get, you know, the default 164 crappy item level stuff, there's going to be the one specific for this event. So Blizzard is still going to give you some crappy low item level stuff, but it's going to be much cooler looking. So pretty much it might as well have been just a cosmetic piece rather than an actual item. And it's going to be mostly just weapons. So shields, bows, two-hand weapons, one-hand weapons, etc, etc, all themed around the Nightborn art style. So it's very nice. Now, to be fair, it's not that there are many sets that are going to fit this theme unless you're a Nightborn yourself with your heritage armor. So you're going to have to be and have some inventive in how to fit these items, these looks in your transmog set. But they are pretty cheap. You can pretty much grab all of them for like 360 time worth badges, so it's basically nothing. Now, there is going to be one ticket item, if you want. One chased by the man himself.
No, I too have proved my worth, Odin.
That's right. You're going to be able to get what Godkin Skoval never could, which is the Aegis of Agramar, at the very least a replica of it. This is pretty unique because it's basically a transmog version of this shield, which is also seen in different other colors and themes as the artifact shield for the protection paladin in Legion, and it's going to be available to all the other specs now, if you can fork out 3000 time warped badges for this shield. Now, the cool thing is also the fact that you don't have to get all the 3000 time warp badges in 2 weeks. You could have as well stockpiled on these time warp badges in all the previous events for time walking, so maybe you can simply take as little time as finding the vendor and clicking once and getting this shield. You won't need to do any time warp badge grind. The other special one is going to be an ensemble, the Ravencrest Battle Plate, which is going to be a full-on set themed around the Black Rookhold soldiers, and it's going to be just for plate, for warrior, for paladin, and for death knight. Cloth, mail, leather, you might as well go fuck yourself. There's nothing for you here. Aside from this armor-related stuff, there is going to be one added mount from the Legion Timewalking, which is going to be the Favor of the Valshara Hippogriff, which is going to be a whopping 5000 time worth badges. It's just your standard run-of-the-mill Hippogriff, recolored in this bourgeois purple kind of tint, if you want. And then most of the other stuff is just going to be your cookie cutter standard type of time walking toys and pets and whatnot that you can get from these events. The time walking armor set, the transmog armor sets are still going to be available. Those were just the new things added from this 2-week long special Legion Mythic Plus event. So, as I said, in the end, the Mage Tower is probably going to gather more focus than the Time Walking for Legion Mythic Plus will, but there are still some good amount of rewards available for you from Mythic Plus in just a few days, and this is what you can go and grab for yourself. It's also going to be pretty nice, you know, after a few months. What's this? Basically 5 months of this patch, you will be able to get a different experience in Mythic Plus, a different seasonal affix, different mobs, different bosses. So especially if you're still looking for gear, especially if you're still hunting for some upgrades on your alts, etc, etc, it's just going to be a breath of fresh air to try to get these gear upgrades in a different environment than you have had for the past 5 months. So if even just for that, it's going to be a cool change of pace compared to what we have gotten up to now in this patch. So For the time being, this is all that is going to be available in the next reset between the Mage Tower and the Legion Mythic Plus. Let me guys know exactly which one of the two activities do you plan to do. If you plan to do both or neither, that's fine as well. That being said, however, we can stop for today. As usual, if you guys want to continue supporting this channel, you can leave a comment down below as well as liking the video, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel, but only if you have ever went shopping with your underwear missing. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I don't know, I feel like a cat. I sleep like 3 hours and then stay awake and then sleep 2 more and then wake up again. Oh my god.